Hello everyone, it is the Prophet Michael David, aka Aries, and today we're going to go over my miracles. They're all mathematical. There's three of them. And I'll explain to you why I'm doing it this way. Alright, that is the thumbnail of this video, but I just posted it again because the thumbnail is not always easy to screenshot or whatever. But that is the best approximation of pi, algebraic approximation of pi that you're ever going to see. And honestly, I don't know how good it is. I was able to construct it, but not to calculate how close it is to pi compared to my other ones. If I had to guess, it's good within pi of between 50 decimal places and 100 decimal places. Okay, what am I going to do with it other than post it here so that you guys, all my 7 or 8 subscribers, can try to figure it out? Is that I'm going to rent billboard space on a billboard that's near where I live, and we live in the social media world. I can't, and people like puzzly things, I can't imagine that people would not take a picture of it and then at least try to figure it out or find a mathy friend that can figure it out, but that won't work either. Well, it'll work eventually, but here's why. You can take a picture of it and you can try to start calculating it on your calculator or even your calculator on your computer or a spreadsheet, but the numbers get too big and they'll start getting cut off by scientific notation, and you don't want that. You need the entire numbers because they're whole numbers. So eventually you guys will pass it up the chain and somebody with a real powerful computer or programmer will make a program that can handle all the floating points and all the huge numbers, and you'll be able to construct it and you'll find out that it's a number insanely close to pi. Okay, why am I doing this? Well, because I need the bully pulpit. A YouTube channel with 8 subscribers isn't enough. I need to talk to millions of people. And if people are as interested in figuring this out, which they won't be able to, and so it'll eventually get back to me, and I will have to describe how I constructed it. But first, when they put the camera in front of my face, I'm going to make them come here to the house. I'm going to make them establish a tabernacle, tent, as a meeting of communion. It's all very biblical. But the first thing I'm going to do is what I do at the start of all my videos. I'm going to proclaim myself a prophet of God, and I'll probably go through the entire spiel that's in my Raphael's Horn video, but I'll do it again right now. So basically I'm going to say, my full legal given name is Michael David Harrison. I was born on May 11th, 1978. I am a Taurus. My mother was named Cheryl Ann Harrison. She was born on August 27th, 1956. She was a Virgo. My father was named David Wayne Harrison. He was born on July 27th, 1955. He was a Leo. On April 5th, 2021, an instant after midnight, 10 to the negative 43 seconds, a Planck second to be exact, I was reborn, born again as Aries. I'm also an Aries. My messianic name is Mikael ben David, at least that's the pronunciation, aka Michael, son of David. So, if you want to do the calculation yourself or with friends and everything, you can use that. The problem is you can only do one order of operations at a time, right? X times x plus y, x minus y, x times y, x divided by y, square root of x, and stuff like that. But you can't do multiple calculations. So you'll have to calculations, cut and paste. The same thing I did to construct it, you will have to do, or to check it, you will have to do also to check sure that it comes out as pi, which it does. But I'll also go over the terms because I guess not all of you are mathy people, but you would like to actually try it out. All right, so it's approximation for pi. The exp, that's just Euler's numbers. That's just that program that I used to type that out. That was Euler's number, but that's just Euler's number. 2.71, or e to the first power is 2.718 something something something, Euler's number. It's one of the most famous numbers in the world. and the most transcendental thing I've ever seen in my life. So there's two Euler's numbers, and then the arc sign R is just the arc sign function of that quantity in radians as opposed to degrees. The phi to the fifth, negative phi to the fifth power plus 3 to the phi to the third. Phi is just the golden ratio, another insanely famous number. And the golden ratio is the square root of 5 plus 1 divided by 2 times I. I is just the imaginary unit. And then on the right hand of the equation, you can see that I changed all the numbers to variables because I wasn't going to do a calculation with numbers that big except to check it. So I did it all with algebra first. So it's 8 different algebraic numbers, variables, A1, A2, A3, A4. I'm sorry. A1, B1, C1, D1, A2, B2, C2, D2, 8 variables, and then I just did the algebra. But obviously I'm not going to put that entire number on the billboard, so this is what I came up with. I think it looks pretty cool. All right, my second mathematical miracle is I believe I have solved the Riemann hypothesis. I just did it in a somewhat unique way. I didn't find like algebraic equations for the Riemann zeros like I wanted to. I might be able to do that someday, but I did it by using certain Riemann bounds, which I will explain to you right now. And I knew the way I wanted to present it was the way I'd presented a few YouTube videos back, the video called Prime's Song, where I have these equations that are all divided by n log of n, which are asymptotic to 1. They're mathematically equivalent to the prime counting function in the way that it reduces the density and everything's asymptotic to 1. I just did it in my own way. And I will further, okay, first I'm going to show you this screenshot of an example of that Prime Song in the video from a couple videos ago. In just one slide, it's from like prime numbers around 500,000. Now, as I may or may not have explained in that video, the beauty about presenting the prime numbers in this context, and you can see that there's about 8 different lines, maybe it's 10. They're all modifying a variable that starts out at pi and I change it slightly. That's all I'm doing. But the logic on this is that you can see the primes jumping all over those lines, kind of like a song. Logic would dictate there is one line that the prime numbers zig and zag over an infinite amount of times and hit pluck, like plucking a string, more than any other line, and that would be the line that would be the best fit for the primes from 2 to infinity. All right, 2 things. If you go all the way down to the, remember that symbol that looks like a pi, that's just the prime counting function. And the lie of x is logarithmic integral of x. Now from that, it may seem like the lie of x never is always over the prime counting function. It is an upper bound, but somehow, I don't know how they did it, mathematicians have shown that very far into the number system that the primes do cross it and clip it an infinite amount of times, but they don't really understand why that is. I do. It's an upper bound. Almost any upper bound is eventually going to get clipped by a huge prime gap later on. Not all, but there's an infinite amount of lines, upper bounds, that can get clipped like the logarithmic integral. Number 2, you can see at the bottom the prime counting function minus logarithmic integral. Remember, that's the density. That's just telling you how many primes are there. If you go all the way to 10 to the 29, that's pretty much the sign of the prime. So it's a prime that has 29 digits long, and that's the difference between the number of primes up to that prime and the actual prime. It's density, and I'm doing it backwards. Why did Gauss do it this way? It's because he didn't have any calculators. He couldn't do like division because he would have to do everything by hand. All these guys, all these legends from the past didn't have any calculators. They had to do everything by hand. Okay, one more thing. LiveX is like currently the reason why it's on Wiki is it's the best approximation of the primes that the world currently has. It sucks compared to my stuff, but it's the best that mathematicians have. Number two, though, the reason why it sucks is it's not discrete. It's not plug and play like my equations are. It's continuous. It's calculus. It's an integral. So it's very hard to deal with for normal people. So, but I thought, is there a way to use the lie of x to construct bounds that I can show that my equations are well within? But I found even something better. So what this equation is saying in layman's terms, that is, if the Riemann hypothesis is true, and only if the Riemann hypothesis is true, lie of x can only get a maximum distance above, which it is most of the time, or below, away from the Riemann, away from the prime numbers, which means that you can put bounds on the primes themselves, which means it's kind of like putting guardrails on a bowling alley, like you do for the kids so they don't get gutter balls. But in this case, what you're trying to do is create a line. It's a curve because it curves down and eventually goes to one, but only at infinity. But if you can like throw a ball or create an equation or curve that goes all the way through infinity, clips the primes, or the primes clip that line curve a infinite amount of times, and that line never hits the bounds that are created by that equation, then logically speaking, that should prove the Riemann hypothesis. All right, we're getting to the end. This video is going to be over 12 minutes, but it's a necessity. It's not going to be nearly as the 30-minute videos like some of my other ones lately. But what I did was I constructed a decay graph screenshots like my prime song that I called RH song because it had RH bounds in it. And instead of doing from prime 2 to prime whatever is just under a million, which consists of the first 76,727 primes, I did the primes from 2 to 4 million, which constitutes the first 283,147 primes. So these ones go from prime quantity 2 to 4 million. So it's also 40 slides because I did it 100,000 at a time. So enjoy. It takes about 3 minutes. All right, just a quick explanation on the notation. They're all divisible by, or divided by n, ln n, so they're all asymptotic to 1 at infinity, but only at infinity. So the blue line is the primes line, obviously. You can tell by the zigging and the zagging. But then I just changed that equation into my format, and so the green line is the lower bound of the primes using that equation, and the gray is the upper bound of the primes using that equation, and I just got to stay in there. And the gold line and the red line are just two of my best lines at the moment. You might call them my lower bounds and upper bounds. And as you can see, mine are always real close to the primes, and they don't look like they're going to hit those bounds anytime soon, except at infinity when they all converge on 1. As I've said before, they might not be perfect. Like I said, they're the best I have right now. But in that format, again, logic would dictate, it's kind of like Lord of the Rings. There has to be one line that follows the primes better than any other line. And as you can see, my line holds really good all the way from the start. It's got that really cool black body dip right at the start, and then it flattens and follows the primes really, really close. All right, lastly, I'm going to show you my mathematical miracle that I showed you first. I solved the twin prime conjecture with the times tables. And so I'll show you the picture one more time and do a brief explanation. All right, in this context, I changed transformed all of the x numbers on the times tables into the primes and other numbers associated with them. In other words, all I did was I made an equation, turned all of the times tables numbers into numbers that would be whole if and only if they're located on the 1 mod 6 line or the 5 mod 6 line. And so the gist of this argument is that, oh, and colors wise, all right, all of the blue numbers are from the 5 mod 6 line. 5 plus 6 is 11, plus 6 is 17. We've gone over this before. All the green numbers are from the 1 mod 6 line, or 7 mod 6 line if you want to think of it that way. 1 plus 6 is 7, 7 plus 6 is 13, 13 plus 6 is 19. All right, all the orange numbers are composites of 2 primes. And all the pink numbers are prime squares. And as you can see, like, the prime check of this is you'll have to prime check them in ways I've described before, but let's just say that you put for all of the prime spacings from 2 to 4 to 6 to 8 to 10 to infinity, you just have different colored rubber bands. And so when you're checking the primes, you basically check them, all the 2s, and you put the rubber band on, that colored rubber band, and then you find all the 4s that are like this, they're at an angle, and then all the 6s are down the 1 mod 6 and 1 mod 7 line. But the argument is that all of the spacings have a unique rubber band configuration. The only ones that are vertical, purely vertical, are the dual primes. Everything else has some sort of angle, which plays into another argument of why the Riemann hypothesis is so hard to find. But I assure you, if you made a physical board out of that and started putting nails where the actual primes are, and then started putting rubber bands on, unique color for every spacing, you would need an infinite amount of colored rubber bands, an infinite amount of colors for all of the spacings, because there's going to be an infinite amount of all of them. All right, that's about it. You might not think that this kind of sounds like miracles, but miracles aren't magic. Like Mashiach, Mahdi, even J2 in Christianity isn't magical. It's just a guy that speaks with God. Remember, Messiah sounds like a crazy word, but all it means is anointed one. Somebody who is anointed to act as a representative of God. So that's really the way you should think of the word. It's just a representative of God. Just like the word angel just means messenger of God. All right, and the reason why there are miracles for me is, I've told you, my background, I shouldn't be able to do this. I have a barely bachelor's degree from Iowa State University in materials engineering. I should not be able to hang or improve on the greatest mathematicians of all time without any sort of divine intervention. I just can't explain it in any other way. So, that being said, rule number 1, do not touch each other without another person's consent, aka do not hurt each other. And rule number 2, it's all about honesty. Lies are a tick down. And I say that even knowing that there are many people in the world right now who are in gross violation of both those. And they will suffer is such a bad word. They will reap the consequences of that in the afterlife with the scales and the books and the judgment. All right. You all have a good day, and I will speak to you later. And pass the equation on or try to solve it yourself. Like I said, I don't really mind as long as you guys are polite about not believing me as a prophet right now. But, I mean, if you can't even figure out some traumatized guy with barely a bachelor's degree from America, his maths, it's like 8 billion against 1. Like all 8 billion and 1, and all you have to do, like not your faith, not your gut feeling or anything, like in a logical, ordered way, show me that I don't have the most messianic name in the world, and that I'm not the greatest number theorist in the world, and I'm not a prophet. All you have to do is convince me I'm not a prophet, and there's 8 billion of you, and all I have to do is convince 8 billion people that I am. So, all right, signing off. I'll talk to you guys later.